another episode of the O2 Garage, and it's been a while since I popped a video out, so I do apologise. It's been a lot going on in my life, changing jobs, moving to different parts of the state and so forth, but as you can see, the Anglia is now back here. It's in the garage and it's up in the air, and I've been doing a few little bits and pieces because it's been so cold outside and we're not in daylight savings, so it's been a bit tough to work on the Anglia, but I have got it stripped out. I've got a few extra bits and pieces on the front, like the headlights. I've pulled the front struts out. I've pulled the rear axle out as well. There's a whole heap going on. And whilst I give you an update on this, let me show you what we did recently. Because we went to a bit of a cruise, which wasn't really a cruise, more of a coffee and cars. Back here in the workshop, the Anglia is obviously up in the air for a very important reason. We're attacking the front of the car. And what I've decided to do is actually work with the existing Anglia front end. I did look at having that disc brake, a rack and pinion front end put in it. It was just going to be too hard. There was going to be a lot of things that were not going to line up. I'd have to do some pretty big modifications to the guards and put wide arch guards on it. I don't want to do that. I want to keep it as a really more of a period correct type piece. So we're going to keep the original Anglia struts. We are going to do a disc brake conversion. We're going to rebuild them. I'm going to rebuild the front end, but that means I've got to pull the front end apart. So I've got the sway bar disconnected. I've got the struts out. Now I'm going to pull everything else out, have a good look at it, reconcile what I've got, buy the new parts, and then get it all mocked back up into place. So I'm going to do that right now. After pulling the front end of the Anglia apart, you can see what we're left is with some pretty old and crusty front end componentry. The bottom end lower control arms, we're going to use those, we're going to keep those. And the steering arms, we're going to keep those as well. Whilst they look a bit crusty, they are reusable. And all we have to do is give them a clean up, put on some new ends on them, and they should be good to go. Now the sway bar is a bit interesting, very unorthodox with this remote anchor point at the very front end. But that's all right, you can get new bushes, and there's a really cool trick you can do with Anglia sway bars, which is to double them up. You get another one, you cut the end off, you make up some little brackets, and it's stiff as all heck. So I should be able to rebuild all of this gear right here. Another thing we did recently was the Dodge truck was looking a little bit average around the gills, and there was a Chrysler cruise coming up we thought that Ruby and I might have gone along to. So we took some time to just give the truck a bit of a freshen up. All right, so let's quickly round things up and give you an idea of what's going on. You can see the whole front end is really completely stripped out now, which is always a good way to be. So everything's out of there. Inside, I've also really stripped the whole lot out, including a lot around the dash over here. I've taken the pedal box out and got that ready to go. Now, I haven't shown you guys, but I did actually manage to find a diff housing. Have a look at that. And it's got some really cool bracing across the top of it, but I'll explain a little bit more about that maybe when I pull it out and get things starting to go. Over here, on the engine stand. I've got the engine sitting there. The pistons are now out. I've got my GT manifold over there. I'm doing a little bit of, what would you call that? Balancing some valves and bits and pieces and so forth. Typical garage style, in amongst all the dirt. That's the best way to be. Now, hiding back down over there, that's the cylinder head. That's all been done, machined, ported, all those good bits and pieces. Talk to you about the manifold. Here's the struts. Now, these are our Anglia original struts. They do have drums on the bottom, but they do have those narrow springs is what we're going to need. So we're going to rebuild all of those, completely put all those together, which is always a good way to be. Steering rack, not using that anymore. Got some tail lights in it now, which is really good. Found some tail lights. You can see I've still got a bit of rust to do there. And I've started to get stuck into the little areas that are going to need those patch repairs along the way, just to make sure they end up coming up okay. I got a couple of little door handles to straighten out as well. But it really is starting to come together. And that's the way a project needs to be. I'm not going to always be able to give you heaps of updates on this car, but what I will do is just let you know time and time again what does happen and so forth. But the Anglia, as you can see, it's all starting to come together pretty nicely. And hopefully, not too distant future, I'll have that engine back together and I can trial fit the gearbox, trial fit all the mechanicals, get it down on the ground, then pull it apart and start doing the bodywork a little bit more seriously, which means I'm going to have to learn how to weld. And I'm not a good welder, but there's always room for improvement. So that's the end of the episode. Hit like and subscribe if you do like our videos. It's always cool to get a new subscription or get a new comment. It really does mean a lot to me. And, you know, if you can do that, that'd be much appreciated. I'll see you next time. And hopefully I'll have another update on this beast.